If you would make your way to Psalm 46. Psalm 46. I've got the most difficult challenge the entire day. Keep you awake. Keep me awake. Chorus will have an advantage here in just a moment, I think, of doing that. But Psalm 46. I read a report on stress the other day, and it just basically says we all have too much of it. I think everybody knows that. This lady who's a mother of three, rushing around, trying to get them all the places they're supposed to be, also very cognizant of the fact she has work to do, and so she's running on fumes all the time. But she thinks she's managing stress pretty well because about every 3 weeks she takes her best friend, they go off to a hotel somewhere, and they veg out in front of the TV and have a massage, and they think, well, that's the best way to solve it. This report, this story said that's not the way to do it because it's deferred. You're building up a bunch of it, and then all at once you're taking care of it. And what you need to do is that you need to have constant ability to drain that stress off, because when you are stressed, your body releases chemicals that hurt the brain, hurt the heart, and even could cause death. And so if your biggest challenge is to keep that from overwhelming you. So how do you do that? This article argued you need small daily escapes to handle that. Then on Time last week, there was a story about these schools that make their kids, all of them second grade and above, do yoga every day because they're all under too much stress. And I thought of all the second graders I know and put them in a yoga studio, and it just doesn't quite mesh with reality to me. But the idea that they are under this tension and they need to release this tension before they can learn. I do think that makes sense. I just don't know that that's the way to do it. Psalm 46, we've been going through several Psalms. This is my favorite one of them. And it's interesting, as I've gone around and visited a few people already at Valley View, trying to kind of break in and get to know some of you. It seems like every house I go to has a story, and I walk away going, life has hit this family. Some of you some of them are that I visited they have adult children that have diseases that have overtaken them. Some of them had these really heavy circumstances that have come into their lives, unwelcomed, unasked for. And what I realize in a congregation, I guess it's always true of every congregation, is life hits people. And it doesn't give you a postcard to let you know what's happening. It just comes at you. And sometimes life can change on a dime. And Psalm 46 describes this, whether it's daily stress or whether it's these big moments of tension that come into your life. Psalm 46 is for you. And it describes the helplessness, it describes the defenselessness, the overwhelmingness of certain things in life. And I want you to read it with me. And then it gives us 2 hints about how we can overcome these or sustain ourselves in them. We don't wait till they're over and try to rally. What we do is it offers some perspective about how in the midst of turmoil, you can still have peace. Because the truth is, life doesn't let you get over things before you have to go on with life. You have to live while it's going on this way. Psalm 46 says, God is our strength, a refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, even though the earth gives way. My insurance guy tried to convince me I needed earthquake insurance. He should have gone to Psalm 46. I mean, even though the earth give way. And I tell you what, I don't think he's necessarily talking about earthquakes here, but it's going to feel like it. And some of you know what it's like to hear news that does shake your life completely. We will not fear though the earth give way and the mountains fall in the heart of the sea. Though its waters roar and foam, you can imagine a great splunk, right? And this great roar and foam of water, and the mountains quake with their surging. It can rock your world and turn you inside out and upside down. But our God is still there to help us. There's a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at the break of day. We'll talk about the specialness of Jerusalem here in a minute. Nations are in uproar. Kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice. The earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see the works of the Lord in the past. The desolations he's brought on the earth. How he's taken care of business for his people. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow. He shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. All this stuff going on, this tumultuous stuff going on. And God says, here's how I expect you to handle it. It's going to happen to you one way or another. Clue number 1 in verse 10 is, be still. Silence scares, doesn't it? You feel that pregnant pause? Be still. Sometimes all you're running and all you're planning and you're running from here to there and taking care of business doesn't take care of anything. You can run all you want to, and you can just call all you want to, and get all in a frenzy and all that stuff, and it doesn't do any good. He says, be still. I think Jesus had an advantage in his day. If he said, I'm going to go down and visit somebody in Jerusalem, from Jerusalem to Jericho, to walk that distance and to have his disciples with him, they had to walk that distance, and they had to say no to everything else. You couldn't do anything else. That took the day. You walk those miles and you walk back, and that's it. In our culture, you can technically get to 5 different places within 5 hours. You shouldn't, and it will drive you crazy, and it'll make you go insane, and you will speed to get there, but you can technically do it. And so we say yes to everything. We overschedule ourselves. We hyperschedule ourselves to get from here, there, do this and that, and don't say no to our kids. Let them be involved in 18 different things, and we're running and we're running and running, and be still. What a strange thing. All this frenzy of activity makes us tumultuous. How much stillness or quietness do you put into your life? Have you ever sat with your kids and said, we're going to sit in our house and for 10 minutes we're going to be still? And they're going to look at you like you've just grown 3 heads or something. Be still. If you do have stillness times, we turn on the TV, put in the earbuds, and we invade our own quietness. If we don't, you got the washing machine going, the dishwasher going, the phone rings. You eat out with people. I've seen this. I was by myself at Burger King one time. This guy was by himself, and he got his meal delivered to him, and he picked up the phone. He said, he was talking to somebody. He said, talk to me. I'm here alone. I can't eat by myself in the quiet. That's how people are. Peace and quiet. We're almost afraid of silence as if it's somehow louder than sound. Your playlist, your radio invades and pollutes the air in your car, and silence seems so foreign. And then there's this movement among the churches, that you hear these groups that say, hey, during the Lord's Supper, we need to sing. And I'm not opposed to singing of the Lord's Supper, but I do think the most novel thing about our worship service is the silence of the Lord's Supper. You are sitting in a pew with a crowd, and you are doing absolutely nothing but contemplating. I had a friend, Henry Dieter, some of you know him, who would say, whatever you do, Spencer, he'd say to me, don't take away my silence of the Lord's Supper. I kind of agree with him. It's the most unique thing of your life, the quietness. Be still. You have a quiet place you can go? Do you have quietness that you put into your life? Sometimes you can't get a quiet place. Sometimes you have to force it. Sometimes it has to be a little bit mental. But the idea is this. You've got to do some mental exercises and get yourself still. And then when you get yourself still, you have the luxury of doing the second thing. Because until you're still, the second thing can't happen. It is in the order of importance. Be still and know that I'm God. If you won't be still, you'll convince yourself your boss is God, your schedule is God, your job is God, your wife is God, your husband is God, your kids are God. What determines what you're going to do? What's my kid's schedule today? That's God. You're going to be convinced politicians are God. God forbid. You run around and think you're God. That's the number one. You're going to think you're God. I'm in control of my life. I'm the one running the universe. Sit yourself down and be still and know I'm God. Nobody else. As long as you're running, you can't know that. And get yourself still and know that God is the Lord. And he is in charge of this universe. Revelation, everybody study, what's Revelation really mean? And they want to run to chapter 21 in heaven. You know the most important chapter is chapter 4. While the trouble is still brewing here on earth, the curtain is rolled back and you see the throne room of heaven. You see the control center of the universe. And what do you see on that throne? It's not American president. It's not you. It's not your boss. It is whom? You're not sure? It's God. And no matter how crazy the world gets, and no matter how strangely you're treated by anybody else on the planet, know this, church, Revelation chapter 4, God is still on the throne. Now, this kind of knowing like this, I think everybody, you're driving through the crazy traffic of Jonesboro. You guys are nuts here in Jonesboro. It's just crazy. As you're driving through that traffic, and I know you know there's a God, and I know you know who's in charge and all that, but it's awful easy to forget. This is a kind of knowing that you have to learn over and over again. I remember learning that an hour with an infant doesn't accomplish anything constructive at all, but it may be the most important hour of your day. Have you learned that? Have you learned that? But you'll forget it, and you'll be reminded, and you'll say, I'm not going to forget this again, but you'll forget it again. You've got to be reminded. I remember learning that time passes really fast, and you'll never regret forcing yourself to visit that elderly lady real quick right before you go home, even though it makes you a little bit later. I've learned that so many times, and I got to learn it again. I remember learning over and over again, it's better to put off mowing your yard, let it grow, than miss a ball game of your kids. Let the grass go. And somebody mentioned something. Wallace's, it's like, we've had 20 kids at our house. Shoot. 20 kids, Harding students at their house all week long, tearing things up. Our house is a mess. So what? But you'll get a little irritated about that and clean it up, and here they come again. You might get a little but you'll learn it over again. Let the house go. Play with that kid. And if your teenager wants to play cards, I don't care what else there is. Just let it go. This is the kind of knowledge that God's talking about. You've got to be still to learn this and to know this. And this is the most important thing I'm going to say about this. God's saying I'm in charge of it. God is not in control of the world. He is in charge of the world, but He's not in control of the world. And you will stress yourself out if you believe that. Look at this world. Does it look like God's controlling anything? In fact, John says, who's in control of the world? 1 John chapter 5. Who's in control of the world? Satan is, right? He's kind of just controlling people like puppets. God's in charge of the world. It's sort of like parenting. You're in charge of your kids, but is anybody going to really try to convince me that you control your kids? Are you going to try to convince me of that? Because I'm going to tell you, you ain't. Now, whatever they do, you plug it into your purpose and you're in charge. But you're not in control. And God is not in control. He's sovereign and He's in charge. And if you forget that, you will get in a frenzy and you'll get stressed out and you'll think the greatest thing in the world is who we get as the president. Who are we going to vote in as a president? That's the most important decision in the world. No, it's not. Because while we may change presidents, the throne is still occupied by the same person. And that is the most important thing you can remind yourself while you're driving through Jonesboro traffic on November, right? 2nd or whenever we vote. Now, I don't know when Psalm 46 was written. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. But let me tell you the story I think it is. Most scholars think this, and take a guess, and it's just a stab, but it's talking about how God is going to protect His city, Israel. And it's the story that's found in 2 Kings. I'll tell you some of it, and then I got to read some of it. 2 Kings chapter 19. Hezekiah has a decision to make. Sennacherib, the leader of the Assyrian army, who is heartless, cruel, and wicked. He found creative ways to torture people. He was one of these that just went in there and just tried to humiliate people as well as destroy them. And he was marching through Judah, and he was tearing up every city he went into. It's like the Cubs in the playoffs right now. I hope until they meet Cleveland. They're just going right through, right? just going through all the cities of Judah, tearing them up, destroying people, killing people, slaughtering, torture, and all that. And he gets to Jerusalem, the city of God, where Hezekiah is the king, and he surrounds it with hundreds of thousands of troops around the king. I told you this the other night with the prophet class. And they surrounded the city of Jerusalem, and Hezekiah was in there listening to the taunts of Sennacherib, the great general. And Sennacherib said, I've attacked all these peoples before I even got into Judah. They relied on all their gods, and I destroyed all their gods. Their gods couldn't help them. Your gods are not going to help you. I'm going to come in there, and I'm going to wipe the earth of you. He sends them a letter saying, I'm just going to tear you to pieces. Your day has come. Your time is up. You're about to be destroyed. Kiss your wife goodbye because you're not going to see each other anymore. And Hezekiah's wondering what he should do. And Isaiah the prophet is saying, listen, your dad was in this spot, and he tried to pay off other nations and made us enslaved. But listen to me, Isaiah says, I just want you to be still and let God handle this. I want you to trust that God can do this. I don't want you trying to fight. I don't want you trying to pay off somebody else. That's what all the other kings have done. I want you to be different. And so Hezekiah's got a consideration. Am I going to do what my dad did? What I saw him do that didn't work? Am I going to do what other kings have done that didn't work? Or am I going to actually trust God? So here's what he does. 2 Kings 19. Hezekiah received the letter the king had sent him. He went up to the temple of the Lord, and he spread it out before the Lord. And Hezekiah prayed to the Lord, O Lord God of Israel, enthroned between the cherubim, you alone are God over all the kingdoms of the earth. You've made heaven and earth. Give ear, O Lord, and hear. Open your eyes, O Lord, and see. And listen to the words Sennacherib has sent to insult the living God. It is true, O Lord, that the Assyrian kings have laid waste these nations and their lands. They have thrown their gods into the fire, destroyed them, for they were not gods, but only wood and stone, fashioned by men's hands. Now, O Lord our God, deliver us from his hand, so the kingdoms on earth may know that you alone are God. Here's what he did. He took the letter, and he sat down in the temple, and he laid it right out here. He said, God, you hear what he's saying? Everybody else has tried paying people off. Everybody else tried to fight them. This is your battle, not mine. I'm going to be still and know you are a God who can defend his people. Verse 32. That night, 35, that night, the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 men in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, they were all dead bodies. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, broke camp and withdrew. He returned to Nineveh and stayed there. This mighty king with those hundreds of thousands of people surrounded even has his own account of this particular thing. And it said, I had Hezekiah the king trapped in Jerusalem like a bird in a cage. And then all of a sudden the account went to something else. He never told the end of the story because it was humiliating. At night, God sent an angel to kill 185,000 of the enemy, and he saved God's people because they were willing to be still and know that he is God. If your time has not come, it will. When something will happen in your life and you have absolutely no idea what to do about it. You have no control over it. You have no influence you can have on it. It so overwhelms you and you're just totally alone. You're sitting there going, there's not a thing I know to do about this, and you've got a decision to make. You're going to run around like a chicken with your head cut off with anxiety, not being able to do anything about it, or are you going to be still and know that he is God? And sometime, when God is all you've got, you're going to discover that God is all you need. But until then, you won't know that. But it's best, it seems to me, that you learn that in little ways early, even as a young person, to learn to be still and know that God is in control or in charge of the world. Then when the serious things threaten you, you'll do just what you've always done. You'll be still and know that he is God. There's nothing more important than knowing that. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. If you are a child of God, here's the advantage you have when everything else around you is going crazy and you have no idea what you should do. One of the greatest benefits of being a Christian is that you can be still and know that He's your God. He's going to take charge of stuff. If you're not a believer, that's not a promise you have. And that's the greatest argument I can make for why you should become one. If you've never responded to the truth of the gospel, please do. You will need what God only can provide you one of these days. You will need it in judgment, but you'll need it in life. If you've never responded, just come and say, Jesus is Lord, and I want to be immersed into His body and become part of His family. That's something that we can do. And from then on, just be still and know that He's God. If this is a need you have, please make it known as we stand and sing to Him.